All right, this is a video on molarity, and molarity is something we'll do in our solutions unit. And all molarity really is just a way to define the concentration of a solution. And the concentration, I think of it as like strength of a solution. It's kind of how much of a substance is dissolved into a set amount of water for an aqueous solution. So the more stuff that you dissolve into a quantity of water, the more concentrated the solution gets and the higher the molarity gets. So molarity is calculated by dividing the number of moles of solute, which is the stuff that goes into the water, by the liters of solution, which is a combination of the solute and the water. Okay, so moles over liters. That's the general formula for molarity. And so one thing that you have to remember about this stuff is that moles, moles and grams are very closely related. So in lots of problems that you work with, you're going to be given the number of grams of a solute, which you'll have to convert to moles in order to use it as your moles of solute here. So whenever you're given grams in a problem, you're going to have to go to moles, and we'll do some examples of that. So to make a solution, there's a couple of steps. So what if we wanted to make this solution? I'll just use ones here because it's easy math. We want to make exactly 1 liter of exactly 1 molar sodium chloride solution that's aqueous. So we got to mix some salt into some water to make this concentration of solution. Okay, so here's how you do that. We know that if the molarity is going to be 1, that means we've got to have 1 mole over 1 liter, right? 1 mole over 1 liter. That means that there's 1 mole of sodium chloride in 1 liter of solution, according to what we're trying to make here. All right, so here we go. We don't have scales that measure in moles, they measure in grams, and that's what I meant up here, where you have to be comfortable going between grams and moles. So instead of measuring out 1 mole of sodium chloride, we have to use the grams, of course, on our scales. So we would measure out the mass of 1 mole of sodium chloride, which is 58.44 grams. Now that goes into the beaker that we're going to make our solution in, and then dissolved in some amount of water. It doesn't really matter how much, as long as it's not 1 liter, or certainly not over 1 liter. The idea being that we're gonna try to get all the salt dissolved, and then we're gonna add enough water to bring the final resulting solution up to exactly 1 liter. And some people make the mistake of measuring out this quantity of sodium chloride, measuring exactly 1 liter of water and then dumping the salt into it. The problem with doing it that way is that you end up with a solution that is greater than 1 liter, which will actually decrease the molarity of the solution. So there's a right way to make these solutions. Now we can solve for each of these 3 variables here, moles up here, we can solve for the volume of a solution, and we can solve for the molarity of a solution. And here's your derived equations. Molarity is moles over liters, moles is molarity times liters, and liters is moles over molarity. Okay, so let's just scratch out a practice problem here. Let's just say that I want to know how many grams I'm going to use NaCl because I know the molar mass of it right off the bat here, of NaCl are in 0.250 liters of 0.50 molar solution. Okay, this is a pretty reasonable question to ask. Okay, so when we're solving for grams, how many grams, we have to kind of remember how closely related grams and moles are. And so really what we want to do is solve for moles and then convert our answer to grams. And so we'll use the derived equation here for moles, and we're going to say moles equals the molarity of the solution, which is this guy, 0.50. Times the liters here, 0.250, And I should tell you, if this is in milliliters, you need to convert it to liters before you do these problems. Because this volume unit here is liters, and that's kind of set in stone. So always use liters for your volumes. And now it's just just multiply these numbers together. Oops. Times 0.25, and that's 0.125 moles. Okay, and then the question though is how many grams, and so we just have to make a quick conversion here. 1 mole of sodium chloride is 58.44 grams, and then we can just multiply these numbers together. Moles cross away, and that's 7.3 grams of NaCl. So the problems don't get too much more challenging than that. It's just a matter of isolating your variable, solving for it, and then potentially doing some conversions back and forth between grams and moles, or liters and milliliters perhaps. So hopefully not too challenging for you.